Well, hello and welcome back. I'm Claire, this is Poppy, and we are working on our field notes. We've got a whole new prompt, so super exciting. Right, I'm going to get rid of this for a minute. Now, the new prompt is for nest, as I'm sure by now, if you're following along, you will have heard, because I do my stitching video on a Sunday. We often end up, a little bit behind some others. So, this is my alliums, which is now all done and dusted. I finished that with you last week. Since you were here, I have decided that I'm putting watercolour paper on the backs of my pages. So that made me realise that I was a page short. So I've added in a page to each of the signatures, and I've used because I'm going journal style, I've used my faux vintage tape. I've stuck it down with some glue, but I've also stitched through because I've got a pretty sort of fabric hinge there as well. So we're going to pull off our papers because they're just going to get in the way. We're going to pull this whole section out of the book, and we're going to start looking at this nest. Now, as you will probably remember, I did already stitch my bit of wool because I wanted that style of, drawing in my stitchery. So we have to incorporate this somehow. Now, on that basis, I thought I would have my nest down here somewhere, probably put some eggs in it, and then I'll have a little bit of wordiology here. Wordiology. I don't know exactly what yet, but that's my plan. And also, because I'm going sort of grungy journal style with my stitchery this time, I have brought along some tea bags. So I've got tea bags. I've got some quite dark tea-dyed lace. I've got some undyed lace, but I don't think I'm going to use that. And I don't think this is the one. Oh, there's tea leaves falling out there, look. I don't think this is the page for my bird. So he'll wait for another project. I've also got some garden twine, and I've got some weird yarn. So, as I said, I think I want it to go here. So, get rid of that. Now, I've got my Prixon pen, and I've got an oval stencil. And what I'm thinking is, this is stitched, not drawn, so that's not going to go anywhere. What I'm thinking is, if I use my largest one, and I come sort of close to the edge of the page, I can draw an oval there, and that will be like the in of the nest, if that makes sense. So then I need the top edge. Because I can't draw, I'm using my oval basically, and then I'm going to come down. I don't want it too deep, come down to about there, and that will be the bottom of my nest. And then if I just sort of connect that up, we're starting to get our nest. And then I thought I would want to do weaving, so sort of weaving messy stitch, because the nest is obviously messy, and I think that's a big enough hole in the middle, so that will be like the side that you can see down, as it were, and then this will be like the front outside. But I do obviously also want some sticky bits. Twigs, that kind of thing. Looks a bit like one of those blow up spars at the moment, but hopefully that'll change. So we're going to need some brown thread, and I thought because birds' nests are generally created by bits and pieces that the birds can find, you know, out and about, we'd mix it all up. So I've got standard brown thread, I've got this variegated brown cotton, and then I've got this sort of browny gold cord that we could maybe couch. I've also got this browny goldy ribbon. So I've got all of those. Get that out of the way. We've got all of that. Oh,
you don't have to worry about anything.
I do apologise. That's because I was watching a video before we got started. So I think I'm going to start by putting a base line all the way round in the standard brown thread, and then I'm going to use the sewing cotton to stitch down bits of twine and bits of tea bag and all that sort of thing, and hopefully then we'll get a nice natural looking nest. I'm also thinking that in one of my bags at the back of my table, I know I've got some, what are they called? The silk cases, you know, a little like coney type silk cases. I can't think what they're called at the moment. So maybe they will be what form my eggs. So I've broken my 6 strands down to 3, and I'm on my way basically. So how are you? You're happy, safe and well? I know there's lots and lots of people doing this project. Every time I turn on, oh goodness me, see they're all separating, it's the only trouble. Every time I turn on YouTube there is a Project 6 video to, oh for goodness me. Just talk amongst yourselves while I very badly thread this needle. Oh, that's ridiculous. Let's try this end. Actually, this is a point talking about threading this needle. I was watching Catherine over at K3N the other day. I watch most of her videos, if not, you know, all. And she was saying that she had discovered, which she hadn't realised before, that sewing needles, like machine needles, have a right and a wrong side. So very often, if you can't thread your needle for whatever reason, then turn the needle over and you'll probably find that it works perfectly well from the other side. So there you go, there's a little tip. Right, so I'm just going to do a very basic back stitch all the way round my main lines. So this outside line, and I know it's very sort of rigid at the moment, but I'm hoping that once I get all my bits and pieces sewn to it, that won't be the case. I feel like that's all I'm doing lately, stitching. I'm having great fun. Those of you that remember the Scrappy Heirloom quilt that I made out of the 3 charity shop shirts, I have been hand quilting that, I think I told you, using a chassis, I can never say it, Sashiko template. So not just straight lines, you know, talk about make life difficult, Claire. And I'm very proud to say that I am now halfway across it. That's a lot of hours of stitching. So that's keeping me going. I'm tending to do that in front of the telly in the evening. Oops, so that's good. I also, having finished my dot-a-day book, have started doing Jerry's sliced dots, whereby we've put a dot onto fabric and then cut it into like quarters and then mix them up. So we're going to get patches that are all different fabrics. So as you can see, I'm working on that as well, because sometimes doing that hand quilting on that quilt, a lot of quilts there, hurts my hands. So then I like to do a bit of light stitching, and that's where those dots have been coming in. Plus, of course, we've got this wonderful stitchery book or journal, but it's quite a small book, and I found the prompts weren't coming quick enough for such a small page, and therefore I ended up doing things like this. And whilst I love it, and it's definitely staying there, obviously it would have worked much better with something like a plant or a flower than it is with this nest. But, you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles, basically. I'm not taking it out. I love it. I'm leaving it there. I also love that I've put this tape on this hinge, you know, as part of that hinge for that extra page. Just for me, it makes it a little bit more journally than a piece of stitchery. So there you go. That's how the cookie crumbles, as it were. And I've decided to have those paper backgrounds. I thought I could, what could I do? It gives me writing space like you would have in a journal. So whether that's where I add some sort of seasonal poems, or whether I actually use it as a journal for, you know, for my happenings, I'm not sure yet. But I have got the ability to write on those. So I'll come all the way around here. And I am aware that some of my back stitches don't completely join up. I'm not worried about that, because as I say, I'm going to be adding so many things on here that it really doesn't matter. I just want to come down to there and reinforce this bottom edge a little bit, where, you know, we're at the base of the nest, and I'm going to be adding the eggs however I end up doing them. Excuse me. Oh, and I have also just purchased the pattern for, I'm sure many of you have seen Hendrik the Hare by Leslie. Well, she has other patterns as well. She has a dog and a duck and a fox, a cat. And I purchased the dog because, as most of you know, I'm a dog lover. So I purchased the dog. So I just started cutting that out yesterday. So going to be working on that as well. And I think it's going to be a bit a fantasy. because the fabrics, I wanted to make it scrappy and I wanted to use, you know, recycled fabrics rather than new ones. So I've got dug out an old duvet, some of hubby's old pyjamas. I have got some unused fabric, not new, vintage, that black that I did my boxing, and I'm thinking it's going to be all black, grey and pink. Now black and grey is lovely, and there are dogs that are that sort of colouring, but I was like, no, I want it more fantasy than that. So one of the duvets is grey, white and pink, so we're going to get some pink in there as well. Right, so that's the bottom wall, and then this is the top of the outer wall, if I'm making any sense. And then I'm going to look at doing a bit of like weaving, and then we'll get bits and pieces sewn in as well. But we can't really do standard lined weaving because, you know, there's not really much about a nest that's properly geometric, so it's going to have to be more like a brick wall, really, backwards and forwards and all over the place. So I'm going to come down there from that end line. Okay, so I've got my nest bowl, as it were, and I'm going to go in there and then on the diagonal there, and then sort of up. Oops, my needle went somewhere I didn't want it to go. I'm going to go up there, so you can see I've got a line there and a line there, so it's off, and then we'll find that top line and I'm going to come down there and then over there down to that one, and then again on the diagonal. So then they'll go up there, and I'm sort of trying to do random diagonal lines. Where's that one? So that needs to go down there, and then maybe we come across there. So I just want random spaces, not spaces, lines where the bits and pieces are held in, if that makes sense. And then I'm coming, the spaces are different, there's no connecting weave lines, well, I'm hoping there isn't. That's my plan. You probably won't see any of this by the time I've finished plastering stuff all over it, but anyway, we'll see. And I've just made my way all the way across the outside, and obviously you don't necessarily want to be bored by me doing that all the way round, so I'm going to stop there. I won't do like the back bit, But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back up, probably in that stitch join there. And I think we'll start with this lovely stuff. So pull that all out of the way, and I'm just going to basically get a little bit like that, make like a sort of bow type double loop. That's my plan, a bit like that. And then I'm just going to couch that down with a single stitch. So I'm just going to pull that through like that, okay, and then I'm going to jump up to say there, and I'm going to do another one, and I know there's blue in it, doesn't bother me, quite like that. Plop that down, come over, couch it in place, and then gently, because we want it to roll, pull it in place. So you can see I'm building up this fluffiness, and then I'm going to come over and do one, say there, because you know, you don't know exactly what the birds have used to make this nest, so it could easily have, that one's a bit small, can easily have lots of different coloured fluffy stuff in it. Okay, so again, lay it down there and come through there like that. Oh, I missed that one, look. So I have to do another stitch now. Come here, naughty bit of ribbony stuff. Go there, stay there. Bring that all the way down. That's better. Okay, now I'm going to come sort of under it on the next line. Oh, pulled it out. It obviously wasn't tight enough, was it? Should we try that again? I don't know why this bit doesn't want to go in. Isn't that odd? The other one went in perfectly well, the other two. Now look, naughty, naughty piece of thread. Go in there, like that. So it's now lower than where I originally intended for it to be. Doesn't matter. So now we'll do our next little trick up the top. And for this, I want to start putting in bits of tea bag. Now, I've moved it out the camera just because we had lots of tea leaves fall out the last one, and I don't want that happening again. So I'm just going to pull a bit of this. I'm going to put like a weird sort of fold in it so that I'm stitching through 4 layers. I'm going to bring that in, and then I'm going to put another little stitch through. Okay. Oh, you see, but don't stitch it in the same place because you'll pull your thread through. There we go. And then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to do another one. So I just sort of tore a long bit and just sort of folded it over like that. Come through all 4 layers and then back down. You can start to see it's getting very 3-dimensional, which I think is awesome. So then I'm going to come up just under the top of my nest with my thread, And now I'm going to put in a bit of this lace. So this Battenberg lace, if I cut, because it's got that like line down the middle of it, I tend to cut it on that line, and then that means I can constantly use the other piece that's been undamaged. That's my idea anyway. So trim that off. Now I've got this piece. Now that's obviously way too big. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut one of these off, this double one, like that. And I'm going to use this weird sort of netty bit. So my needle is here. If I do a stitch or a semi-stitch and I poke that through, I can grab this down behind these tea bag bits. I'm going to give another stitch to hold that in, like so. Now really I'd like to be sewing this with you know, standard cotton, but as I've got all this on my needle, I'm using it. So then I'm just going to move along, do a stitch, poke that in and do another stitch. So what I'm creating is, look, all this nesty stuff. I don't know what to call it, but it could obviously be bits of twig and bits of moss, although moss is obviously green. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get a semi lifelike nest that's full of whatever the birds could find to make it soft and cozy home, rather than just being lots of stitches. Nothing wrong with lots of stitches, of course, but it's not what I wanted for mine. Make sure that stays under that thread. I think I've pulled it out now. Oh no, there you go. See, and I'll leave those, I wanted to say twitchy bits, but you know, I'll leave them. So I'm going to finish off this thread now because it's quite short. Turn it over and just tie that off. So you can start to see how my nest is started off as that very strict circle, and now it's getting a bit tatty and messy, and I love it. So that's what I'm gonna be doing all the way round. I think before I go, I'll just show you a little bit of this twine on it. So we'll use the sewing cotton, which is what I intended to use. Get a length of that, get our needle back, and now of course we've got a very thin cotton and quite a big eye, so threading that should be super easy. Famous last words, of course. There we go, much easier. Right, so what I think I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and make this twine into like an alt. So when we normally tear our fabrics and that and get all those weird strings, and we wrap them all up, don't we, in an alt, sort of like that, and then sometimes stitch it down to make well, often birds' nests and things. So I'm going to just sort of go like that, trim that off, and again I'm going to hold that there, a bit like that, and my thread is already through, and then I'm just going to come up and down with just standard sort of stab stitches and get that stitched into place. So then this bit I want to maybe move up there, and I'm trying to deliberately, sorry it's not the best view is it, trying to deliberately mess it up, if that makes sense. I don't want it neat, I want it very, very random. So I'm going to like go between, say, the bottom two with my needle, get that stitch in, and then I'm going to go sort of way too far up, and then that's just going to pull it up like that, and then without moving I'll do a couple of stitches there to like hold that down, and my thread is changing colour because it's a variegated thread, so that should add even further interest. Now this one has sprung out, so I'm going to put that back down there and try and catch that back in. Just with a couple of stab stitches. And then just hoik that over. That's Bo flapping her ears around in her sleep. And then when I've got this stitched basically where I want it, like so, I think we need a few more stitches over here. Whoops. And I'm hoping this is going to work. I will be putting another piece of tea bag or whatever on there, but before I do that I'm going to give it all a haircut. So pull my needle through and close it off, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give these bits, which are now stitched down, a bit of a haircut and try and sort of unravel them. So I think we'll go like that, and just where they've what's the word I'm talking about, where they've been wound and they've got this like threaded coil, I just want to try and unravel that and just make like mini twigs and things. Look, that's my plan. See, because then if we put another bit of tea bag on top now, so I do like another little stitch there. Don't mind that I'm going from the top because I'm going to cover it all up. So break that in half, do a twist, come through there, and then do a stitch and pull that down like that, and then go again. Now if this was a coloured piece of fabric rather than a bit of tea bag, that could be a fantastical, you know, a fantastical flower. But it's part of my bird's nest. So yeah, that's how I'm going to be going about this. So I'm just basically going to sit here. I'm going to add all sorts of random bits and pieces until I've filled it up, and then I'll decide if it's too round and it needs to be like a bit more spiky or whatever, because now of course I've got this one. So again, like I did with the twine, I'm just gonna wrap round a few times. Whoops, you're getting carried away with yourself now, Claire. And I'm just gonna position that about there. So this is a combination of what I did with the ribbon at, what's happened here? Oh, okay, let's cut that, because what I've done is I've then gone from the front when my needle was at the back. So this one I'm just gonna, just gonna stitch this down like so. Very random, don't want it neat. And then we could maybe pull those down there so it comes like that, over, under, over. Just lots of stitches to get all this random bits and pieces stitched down. Look at that. I think that's going to be awesome. Very random nest. That's been expertly woven by a bird not named Claire. Okay, so lots and lots of stitches on that, and then we'll come back up and we'll put our last bit of that, oh, where's it gone, that torn tea bag. Oh no, look, let's have this. This is that piece of lace. So it's the edge of the lace. I know there's another bit of tea bag under here somewhere. Right, that's not going anywhere. Where's my bit of tea bag gone? Can't find it. Well, in that case, we'll have another bit. We've got a few. So this is where you're probably going to tell me, Claire, you already used it. Pop that on there. So anyone who is into grunge, or you come to the right place. I'm not one, if you hadn't realised yet, for doing things all neat and tidy, or overly realistic. There we go. So got loads of weird thread at the back here. Sort all that out when you've gone home. just trim that so we can, oops. I thought I'd cut through the fabric then. That was going to be a real disaster, wasn't it? Okay, so I'm just going to put a point on that and a bigger point on that, and then I'm going to do a haircut on these so that they can all fan out a bit like the other side. There you go. There is the beginning of my nest. As always, a huge thank you for you choosing to spend time with me today. I hope you found some joy and inspiration. Stay safe. I'll see you very soon. Ta-ta for now.